And we're rolling live for another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. Today I have a legit badass on the show, my buddy Dave Morrow. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. You're the first guy I reached out to last week when I'm like, hey, I got to go on the podcast circuit for my new book. And so I'm like, first guy's Meincke. That's who I'm reaching out to. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on short notice, man. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah, man. It's so you got another book coming out?
Indeed, I do, sir.
Or is
no,
out?
Not yet. So we're launching it on Black Friday. Surprise, surprise, right?
Okay.
So that's going to be the main effort of what I'm doing and what I'm going to talk about. But I'm sure we'll meander into different topics. But yeah, it's been about when was COVID? Was 2020, eh? So that's 4 years
like
ago.
Another century.
It was a whole other lifetime ago. So that's when I got started writing the book so that I didn't go insane. And I just kept it on on my Google Drive, and I didn't think of it until last year. And I got approached by Phil at Double Dagger Books. He just casually asked, hey, do you have another book on the go? I said, actually, I have one kind of on a hard drive. Do you want to take a look at it? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And then now that's what I'm doing now. That's publishing that book.
So tell me about Double Dagger. I'm interested because I got another book cooking myself.
Yeah. So doubledagger.ca. So, I mean, Canadians, we kind of get shafted a little bit here. And it's a geography thing. It's a low population thing. We just don't have the engine like the Americans do. Now we have about 40 million people. That's a fair amount of people. But when it comes to like publishers, they're few and far between. And if you're going to go with the big one, it's an American publisher. And so in terms of smaller publishers, especially for those of us that want to get our books out without having to go to like Penguin or like Simon and Schuster or all the big names, that likely won't give you a nod. Double Dagger is a great option because he's a veteran. So he likes publishing war stories, which is, we have a real lack of war stories, right? As you know, how many books were published on Afghanistan? Like none, man. It was the longest war in Canadian history, and there's like 0 books on it. It doesn't make any sense. There was an article written about it not too long ago. I can't remember who the author was, just saying like, where are all the books on the war? It's been over a decade.
Well, there's Brass and Unity.
Right.
Kelsey Sharon put out hers and her experience. Yep. You know,
Jody,
but you're right.
Jody wrote his on flinching. And, you know, there's a few other, but, you know, in terms of, you know, big books that are produced by, you know, historians to go over the war. There was even a scandal about the official version being released by the Canadian government. That's how bad it is. You know, I just find it hard to believe that there's just no popular account of what went on other than a few pieces of literature.
We are the shits at telling our own stories. I mean,
absolutely.
And it starts really with the government, I would say. Like, they don't wave our flag. They're not proud of their military. Never have been. One great example is, because I'm a little bit older than you, Dave. So is Meincke Pocket. So for everybody that doesn't know Meincke Pocket, I was in the same area exactly a year later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Meincke Pocket was in 1993. It was the biggest battle since Korea. It was part of the UN peacekeeping mission in Croatia. But the Croats wanted to do some more genocide, but the government changed the name of genocide to ethnic cleansing so that people wouldn't get all upset and actually expect us to do something about it. So they made it sound like you're having a shower. Oh, I still hate that term so much.
With ethnicity. Yeah. It's the wordsmithing.
It's wordsmithing.
Right?
It's all it is.
Of how we get around things.
It's a euphemism. Yeah. It drives me bonkers. But it was a genocide. And there was another village called Meincke that in this little pocket, thus Meincke Pocket, and the Croats were positioning to wipe out this entire village of Meincke in Sector South in Croatia. The Canadians were like, well, you know, we've seen enough genocide around here. Don't like it so much. So no genocide for you today. No, we're going to dig in. And they're like, but we really want to. Well, sorry, you can't, but we really want to. Well, guess we're going to fight then. And I think the French were there because there's 21 countries representing the UN at the time. And the French, and I think one other country, I could easily be wrong about that, but at least one country ran away, said, no way, that's too scary. Somebody could get hurt. So they retreated and ran away. And the Canadians are like, oh, great. I guess it's up to us. So they dug in, and they dug in defensive trenches, which also had not happened since Korea. So they dug legit trenches, and they fought for like 4 days. The official numbers were, I think, the bullshit number that they put out was they killed 27 Croats, not one dead Canadian, couple of wounded, but nobody's dead. And but I know that's not true, because I know one fella all by himself with a C6 machine gun mowed down at least 60 of them. So the real number is probably like 250 from the stories I hear. Nobody knows though, because they didn't want it. Canada didn't want to tell the story. They didn't want to admit that this is a combat mission. They wanted us to look like a bunch of fucking Care Bears. And we'll just give them the Care Bear stare. That's how we'll keep them away. Love. No, that doesn't work. Yeah, we can hug them and give them a box of cookies. It's not going to keep them from wanting to do fucking genocide. And the Canadian government said nothing about it. And they kept such a tight lid on it that even us, the same regiment, everything, were there a year later. And the only way we knew about any of it is because some of the people that were there were on our tour. But there was no briefing. We're in the same ground. We're in the same area. How about a briefing maybe? Like, this could be useful.
Crazy.
Pretty interesting intel. Like, we need to know this stuff. Like, what is the threat level? Are we going to battle? Because we might. And it wasn't even spoken of to us that we're operational. So, I mean, what better story? We dug in. We fought for 4 days. The 2nd Battalion PPCLI, largely augmented by the Calgary Highlanders, a fantastic reserve unit, which my son is now a member of as he's in high school. Yeah, very, very cool.
Oh, cool.
Proud regiment. Excellent reserve regiment. I served with quite a few Highlanders that were in my section, actually. And we're not telling this story. You know, unfortunately, not everybody in the village of Medak survived, but we were all there alone, and we did our best.
The only way I know about that story is because I read the book Ghosts of Medak by Carol Off, right? Which I read that when I first joined. So that was like 2001, 2002. And I'm like, wait, hold on a sec. This is combat, like tow missiles. It wasn't, we're doing like a little incursion and like we're having like a VCP set up and like, things got a little hairy. I was like, holy shit, like what you're saying here. Yeah, it was full on combat. It wasn't, it wasn't peacekeeping.
Yeah, it wasn't stop or I'll stop again.
It was not the peacekeeping missions that, in the early 2000s, what they were like, that was combat in the 90s. And I was a kid in the 90s, right? I was in high school, so I wasn't paying attention. But once I joined the military, I was really interested in things that had happened. And the only book that I know of is The Ghost of Medak, which I have on my bookshelf. It's a great book about that battle. And so you're right. There's very little in terms of, the government wanting to know or to show that, the Canadian Armed Forces were freaking badass mofos, man. Like we kick ass and take names. That's I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine. He actually works with the Liberal Party. He's a reservist, or he was a reservist too. So I'll keep him anonymous for now. But he was saying this like, man, we don't have a rallying cry.
Well, if he works for the Liberal Party, he'll be out of a job soon.
Yeah, well, he's good. He's good people. There's some voices of reason in that party. So I keep faith alive because of guys like him. But he was saying, he's like, yeah, we need a rallying cry. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, he's like, in the military, like case in point, he's like, I'm so pissed at what they did. I'm like, yeah, because what better way to create a story and a myth. You need your society, your civilization has to have a unifying myth. And for me, I'm like, the obvious thing is the military. Man, we kicked ass and took names in every battle and every war we've ever been to, but yet we have so many that are just like swept under the rug. Like we want
Our
to.
American brothers and sisters don't even know until they work with us. Then they're like, "Holy shit, these guys are switched on." Did you work with any Americans when you were in Afghanistan?
I sure did, man. I only worked with Americans. I didn't spend any time with Canadians. My entire tour was with the 10th Mountain Division 171 Cav. So shout out to my brothers in Watertown, man. Um, that was such a cool experience because I didn't know when I got on the ground who I was going to be working with. So I was I was in CIMIC, right? So I was a CIMIC operator. So I walked around with a backpack full of money, and
So I don't know what that is. What's CIMIC?
yeah, I'll get into it. So there's PSYOP, CIMIC, and technically Intel are kind of all within like the same kind of IA, so information activities.
You were
So
a spy.
well, so the fine line I had to tread was I couldn't be seen as like an Intel guy. So if there were Intel guys around, I had to leave because my goal was to make connections. Like I'm a people person. I know people, but it helped that I had a bag full of money. So I was always the cool kid in the village, right? Because everybody wanted my money. So I would do
Well, it'd be pretty
contracts.
easy to spot. You're what, 6'4"?
Yeah, I'm massive and wearing a different uniform from all the other Americans. Like not hard to spot Dave. So so my name was Deb over there, and apparently that means devil in Pashto. So they're always like Deb, Deb, Deb. I'm like, why do they keep on doing that to me, man? My interpreter's like, oh, it's because your name's kind of funny. It kind of means devil. I'm like, ah, sweet. I'll take that. I'll take that nickname any day. So I had to do a lot of negotiations, and I also had to kind of thread the needle and not be seen as like part of like clearly I was passing up, like white essay as we call it, like this is the village elder here, and this is the teacher here, and this is clearly it's intelligence, right? But I just had to kind of not let them get the impression that I was working against them and having their sons being taken away at night by our secret squirrels. They were really pissed when that would happen, dude. And they'd be like, Dave, what the shit? But I'm like, look, let's go have some tea, man. Like, let's figure this out. And then I'd be like, I'd talk to like the American captain, who's in charge of the strong point. I'd be like, John, man, what happened last night? He's like, I don't even know when these guys are coming. It's just like, all right.
Would it
all
be
right.
American soft or Canadian soft
going in? Canadian soft a lot of the times, but American soft will go into. And I had a great time, man, working with the Americans. It was a cool experience because they operate differently than us, right? So the cool thing was they operated
a little bit more yeehaw cowboy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it couldn't have been more professional, man. Like the cool thing about
I've heard a lot of good things. Like we like to dish on them, but I've heard good things about the Marine Corps, which is different than the reputation they had when I was a young soldier.
Yeah.
But they were really, really well respected in Afghanistan, like really good soldiers.
So I learned like so they look down on like the infantry, right? These are like Cav scouts, right? They're like infantry. They're like, all right. They're like, all right, let's give you an education here, Dave. Like our test scores, because everything is so well organized there. Like they really use their test scores, their aptitude tests to like put them in different trades. So their MOS gets determined a lot better than ours, from what I can tell. To get a Cav scout, MOS is harder than infantry, and they have a different rank structure, and their patrols, like they would do just really light patrols because we weren't mounted. Even though they're a cavalry, we rarely were in vehicles. They'd send out just like 4 patrols a day in like every direction with like 5-man patrols. So like we were just like going hard, like fast and hard. So like we were just constantly saturating the villages, which I thought was awesome. And their officers are incredible. Like their officers, I find, are, especially their junior officers, are so much better than ours. And I think it's their command presence, but also they don't mess around. As soon as you screw up, that's like strike 1, strike 2. Like some of the officers, they'd just be like, he's getting on a helicopter, like get him the hell out of here. Like they literally put him on a helicopter and fly that LT out. Like they wouldn't mess around. So the guys that stuck around, they were battle hardened and they were just super
Well, because they
competent.
got the people, right? They got the numbers. We have to, and it's always been this way. We got what we got. You get what you get. You don't get upset when it comes to leadership because there's nobody to replace them. I was talking to a Patricia Corporal yesterday at the Remembrance Day ceremony, and man, have times changed. So this kid, he's been in about 5 years, and so he just got his second hook,
Mm.
and being to make it to master corporal, I mean, maybe the 7 or 8 year mark. I'm like, really? But with the calf being so damn small, I would have thought it would be the other way around.
Seven
But no,
years?
because there's so few people in, the ranks aren't moving. And it's like, well, okay. Well, that was my take. But yeah, I told him, yeah, a hot shot back in my day,
Back in the day.
back in my day. Like I knew one guy, he was a jack in his third year,
Yeah.
and it typically would be 5 or 6, but now it's like 7 or 8, which is, I mean, that's a while. I mean, you should be a sergeant by then.
Yeah. And the American NCOs, like there's, they have sergeants that are like 22 because
Wow.
for them, the sergeant isn't a Canadian sergeant. So I had to make it clear I'm an E6, right?
Well,
And he's
sorry, just the other thing he told me is that he's a corporal, but he's a section IC.
yeah,
That shit hasn't happened since Korea.
yeah.
So that just shows you the problem with manpower. It's significant. Another thing he told me is that there's about half a dozen females in the 3rd Battalion PPCLI. I'm like, that's great. Shocking, but great. I mean, they used to be as rare as hen's teeth, but to have 6 as all at the same time, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they can stick around and have some length in the game, that'd be even better too,
Oh
right?
yeah, if you can do more than your initial 3, that would be spectacular.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a hard game. It's like definitely a young
Especially
man's
3rd
game.
Battalion. Fuck
Yeah,
off.
it's all the jumps and well, assuming they're jumping. But even
No,
still,
there's in the 3rd Battalion has a jump company.
company, yeah, right. I'm assuming they're in
But
jump
he
company, right?
wasn't in the jump company. He didn't have his wings.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a rough game, and that's what. Well, hey, part of my book, I got banged up. I was a reservist, right, my entire career, 15 years, and I wasn't even doing it full time, and the beating I took, right,
Oh yeah.
was pretty significant, and it's definitely harder on women because the research is very clear, right? I mean, shorter legs, different hip structure. It doesn't
Just bone density. I
bone
mean,
density like
a 60-pound pack is a 60-pound pack. The kit list is the kit list. You got to carry it. It's not indexed to your body weight.
no, and that's I wish they wouldn't lie to women. It's like we want as many women as possible. It's like, I wish they would just tell it like it is. Like this is going to crush you. It crushes most guys.
It breaks most men.
Yeah, in order for you to get to the level that the guys will be at, you're going to have to do this much more. And
Oh, they have to be CrossFit superheroes.
and
Yeah.
even still, it may be a little bit too much. And it doesn't mean don't give it a crack, but and the bigger picture is just in general, we do a shit job at preparing our soldiers for the rigors of battle and being an
Well,
infantry soldier,
and the
right?
physical
So,
damage that's done to you for the rest of your life. Like
yeah,
you don't recover from this shit.
and there's no follow-on plan, right? It's just keep on taking the beating. And we talk constantly about mental health, and you obviously have a mental health podcast. But for me, right, like the mind follows the body. So if you're so beat up, and by the time you're like 29, you're like, man, my knees really hurt, my back really hurts. You've done no preventative care, and you've done no care to actually repair the things that have been breaking down. And it's the little things, right? Like your knees just don't, unless you have a catastrophic injury, your knees just don't buckle overnight. It takes a lot of ground pounding. And are you doing anything to resolve that? Are you doing anything to resolve mild traumatic brain injury? Are you doing anything to resolve the sleep deprivation? Are you doing, likely not, because we just, guys wash out, right? And I'm talking like guys specifically, right? If you can do 20 years in the infantry, good on you, man. I don't know how guys.
It's rare, but like people do it. Matter of fact, a buddy of mine just retired a couple of years ago. He was along in the tooth corporal when I was in.
Oh,
You know, he
I
did,
can do that, man.
brother, he did 35 years. Tom Cole, he doesn't mind me using his name. Tom Cole, the fucking
Tommy.
legend, he did 35 years in a rifle
Fuck.
company. I mean, he walks like he'd been riding a bull. You know,
Tommy's
he's
going to need some CBD. He's going to need some
yeah,
CBD.
but
Oh, man.
that freaking legend did it, made it to the dizzy heights of the sergeant rank. But he tried to be a corporal forever. That he couldn't stand watching all these people that he put through
Of course.
become his boss. He's like, okay, maybe I'll accept a couple of promotions.
Oh, boy. Good. What were we talking about? We're just talking about before we start talking about getting banged up in the infantry.
Well, we were
I
talking
had a
about how
point.
we don't tell our story very well.
Oh, right.
You
Yeah.
know, like the Canadian military's got a lot of great fucking stories. The stories of Tommy Prince. I had the daughter of Tommy Prince on the show, and we're still friends, Karen. And what a great lady. But what a tragedy. So just a quick recap for those that don't know who the hell Tommy Prince is. Tommy Prince was a member of the 1st Special Service Force. He is the actual reason why they were called the Devil's Brigade, because they were actually referring to the one man as the devil because of his exploits. And the entire brigade ended up taking on that name. It was a combination. It was actually the birth of the Green Berets in the States, the 1st Special Service Force. So Tommy Prince, First Nations, an Indigenous dude, absolutely legendary. Like he would go on one man army missions and crawl into German barracks and slit throats in the middle of the night. Just
Insane.
unbelievable. And so he started with the 1st Special Service Force and was just like, he's the most decorated Canadian soldier ever, or top 3, something like that. And then in Korea, he's like, well, I'm not done fighting. So he goes back to Korea with the 2nd Battalion PPCLI. So now he's a Patricia. So of course we always claim him as our own. But that's not how he started. He didn't start as a Patricia, but he served in Korea after World War II and just kept fighting. So this Canadian hero, all right, died homeless and drunk on the streets of Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute tragedy. And things haven't changed. There was just testimony just yesterday, last week, of my friend Marie Blackburn. She's the founder of the Veterans Association Food Bank, and she was testifying at the Standing Committee at Veterans Affairs. Blake Richards has been sharing the story that, and she's got lots of stories like Tommy Prince, where our heroes, and we do have heroes, are just not looked after.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that we don't have outreach. So there's nobody. Like the hardest phone call I ever made in my life, Dave, was asking for help.
Yeah.
Because my life was falling apart again. Marriage is falling apart again. And it was this asshole, me, that was the common denominator. And I finally realized I need bloody help. And picking up that 1,000-pound telephone to ask for help the first time, man, it was brutal. And a lot of guys just won't. And that's why we need outreach.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree, man. On the outreach side of thing, I remember the first time I was like, I think I need to call Veterans Affairs. I was teaching. I was just white knuckling it for weeks.
Tell me about the white knuckling, Dave.
So just going to work and just being in a constant state of fuck. Like relationship is going to shitter, with my wife. I can't sort my thoughts out at work. I got a very, like, teaching is a stressful job because you always have kids coming in. They're always asking you questions. And when you're not,
and you're not allowed to choke slam them.
No, especially 12-year-olds. Not a good way to end your career. Anyways. So you have to always keep the veneer. I'm in a private school, like suit and tie. And it's just everything feels like I'm going down a toilet drain. And I'm like, and I have no connection with, I'm out of the military. Like I've been out for years. I have no connection with VAC. I didn't even know there were services, but I was just like, I got to call somebody. And I wasn't telling anybody. So I remember after the meeting was done, I was the only guy left in the conference room. I went online and I was like, okay, VAC. I called them, and then I'm on hold, and I'm like, okay. Somebody finally picks up, and I talk, and then they're like, well, what's the issue? They're like, are you suicidal? I'm like, no. They're like, well, do you need help? I'm like, I think so. They're like, okay. And then they started going through things, and then it took too long. And for whatever reason, I was just like, this isn't for me. And I hung up, and that was it.
And of course, I didn't call back.
And then there was no call. Yeah, I didn't leave any name or anything like that. So I was just like, okay. And then it took months later. I was just white knuckling it through to, I left my job. I was having panic attacks at work, which was like kind of like a flashing red light. Like I was doing like box breathing. So before my kids would come into class,
the first time you had a panic attack, did you think you were having a heart attack?
So I don't know if it was, I don't know to be honest, I just knew something was wrong because I didn't feel like tightness in my chest or anything like that, but it was like, I can't even compare it to like getting shot at, because it was kind of exciting. I mean, this wasn't exciting. This was like doom. So and it was right before the kids were coming into class. And so I had this little like side room, and I would duck in there so they wouldn't see me. And I would just, and I'm just like, okay, get a grip. And then they'd be waiting till I like got myself like regulated. And then I'm like, okay, I can do this for another class. And I would do that. I did that for like months, and it I wasn't talking to anybody about it either, because I didn't want to like lose my job. I'd take days off, and it just wasn't the right solution. In my mind, I'm like, I just need to sort myself out. And then it eventually led to me saying like, I can't work here anymore. So I left my career. Everybody's like, what are you doing? You have a great career. Like, is your dream job? I'm like, yeah, I need to try something else. So I got this other job working in the private sector, and I got fired like almost immediately, like within 3 months. Like that was it. They're like, yeah, you're not a good fit, man. And now I don't have a job.
Why do you think you were fired? Why do you think you weren't a good fit?
I knew, so knowing what I know now, I didn't listen to my instincts. I knew that position was a terrible fit for me, but somebody actually headhunted me. Somebody actually wanted me. I was just seeking a new purpose, and I was just seeking somebody that actually appreciated me. So I immediately latched onto that. The pay was a little better, but there wasn't well-defined, terrible leadership, all the things that just didn't work for me. And then on top of that, I was clearly suffering from post-traumatic stress that I didn't know I was, but like but outside in, clearly I was. Like, couldn't sleep. Like, I was just a mess at work. I couldn't focus on anything, like all the telltale signs. And so clearly my work performance sucked, and being with a private entity, like a private corporation, they don't put up with that stuff. And rightly so. So like, yeah, this isn't working out. So see ya. I was like, all right. I've never really been fired in my life. So that was a big shock. And now I'm sitting at home. I don't know what to do. I'm like, do I go back to teaching? I'm like, but that gives me panic attacks or whatever that was. So I'm like trying to look for jobs. I don't have any support from VAC. And then my wife is like freaking out because I'm on EI, not bringing in enough money to pay for like the mortgage and kids and stuff like that. And so then that's when I was like, okay, I have no choice. I got to reach out to VAC. And then I started the process there. And I was just like, okay, I got to be patient here because I have no other option. So then I started to slowly get myself kind of back on track. But yeah, it was pretty dark for a while there, man.
That's the problem, is that we don't reach out until we're rock bottom.
Yeah.
I was rock bottom. I was screaming at my 10-year-old gentle little son because he spilled crumbs on the floor, and I'm down on one knee, knife hand out. What the hell is wrong with you? And then my wife and then I suddenly realized that I was hurting my kid. As I watched his face melt, but I couldn't stop. It was like an out of body experience. Like, I know that I'm doing something bad and I can't stop. It was a total runaway train until my wife put her hand on my shoulder and said, Mark, they're just crumbs. We can clean them up. And I can't do this by myself anymore. because we've been trying for weeks to figure out how do we, figure out the dinner table so that I'm not an asshole. And we couldn't figure it out. We tried all kinds of different things. My wife and I were fairly smart people, but our problem solving was not doing it. And I could not do it myself. So I made a call that night. I called the Legion, actually. It seemed to make sense. And they helped me and got the ball rolling, because I'm not an administrator filling out forms and shit.
Mm.
Nope. That ain't me. But yeah, it wasn't until I really didn't have a choice. I did not have a choice. I could not hurt my children anymore, and I couldn't stop hurting them. Not physically, but by being an idiot. I couldn't stop. It was a runaway train. So I knew I needed help. And that is usually the case. So when you finally do pick up that 1,000-pound telephone, there better be a pretty easy path once somebody picks up and says, hello, can I help you? Because what happened to you was, hello, can I help you? Please hold. And then you didn't seek help again for however many months.
It's wild.
Right?
Yeah, it was a while. Yep.
And that's the norm, man. I think it's usually the second, third attempt, I'm going to guess, before somebody actually, like you did, has the patience to go, I've got to just tough this out. And that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of the issue from my perspective, being a reservist, right? A lot of reservists fall through the cracks, and most reservists don't feel that they are worthy of the services.
Not a real veteran.
They're not real veterans.
Yeah.
I literally just had this conversation yesterday too. Like, dude, you're a veteran, man. Like, you put your name on the dotted line. You did 8 years. You have tinnitus. You did it. You just, it's all based around deployments. It's like,
I also had this conversation yesterday with a Padre who screwed up the ceremony last year. So before the ceremony this year, I went and had a little chat with him nicely and politely. But I said, dude, last year, you basically said that the only real veterans are World War I and World War II. You may have not meant that, but that's what you did.
Mm.
And there's a lot of us that have watched our friends die, like in combat. I have, and a lot of us have. So fuck you, But you don't have to be in combat to be a veteran. The legal definition is you pass basic training, and at some point after basic training, you got an honorable discharge. That's it. That's what the definition of veteran is.
Yep.
And I don't do the 3-tier veteran system anymore. It's like, if you served, you served, you signed the blank check, period, the end.
Yeah. And that's more than 99.999% of Canadians will ever do, right? Yeah. The just sheer fact that you're willing to say, hey, Canada, my body, mind, and soul are yours for the period that I'm doing this for. That's a big freaking deal. And like, there's a very, like, I wouldn't say there's a very strong chance, but there is a non-zero chance that you're going to get hurt and or worse by doing this job. So, and it's not really a job. Like, I'll be honest, like, people are like, oh, it's just a job.
Especially when you join during wartime. When I joined, the Gulf War was going on. Everybody thought it was World War III.
So many people don't realize that, man. Like, so many people join. I'm like, you joined during war. Like, if you joined in the 2000s, you joined during wartime. A lot of guys don't even equate that it was like, you didn't know. But you still went and signed up during a period of war. We were actively engaged in a war. It was a global war on terror. So good on you, man. Like, not many people took up that call. So that's why, you're a veteran, regardless of when you sign up or what you did, or as long as you hit that legal definition, good on you, man. Like, that's partly why I didn't seek out help. Because, on top of that, reserve units don't know the first thing about what's available. And that's a big gap, right? The clerks don't know anything. None of the officers know anything.
It's why I do the show, man.
Yeah, that's what, there you go. Like, the free information that you can get right now because of guys like yourself, make that a lot easier bridge to cross, because we're like, oh wait, Mark mentioned that on his show the other day. Huh, interesting. Okay, well, I just need to go to this website, or I just need to call this person, which we didn't have like when we were getting out, right? Like there was no podcast when I was
Oh,
getting out.
Jesus. No,
Like
didn't exist.
there's no even there's like what the army.ca website that was just a message board. I don't know if that's still open. There's Reddit and stuff like that, which is a little bit more involved in Facebook and stuff.
Dude, there
But
was barely internet when I got out.
yeah, like I
I got out in
officially
95.
right. Yeah. So officially I was 2016. So, it is what it is. Obviously there's podcasts and stuff, but in the Canadian sphere, the only podcast that I was listening to on the Canadian side was Jody Middick's podcast. It was part of the inspiration why I got into it, because Joe Rogan was my main one, and then Jody was doing his, and he just said something that was really inspiring. He's like, man, we need more Canadian voices out there. That's partly why I do this. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why aren't there
It's
more
too bad
Canadian?
Jody didn't stick to it because of being on Jocko and stuff. The Jody Middick podcast did well,
Yeah.
but he just wasn't consistent with it, and then he let it go.
Yeah.
And had he not done that, it would have been very successful.
I think he's going to get back into it. I was chatting with him the other day. I'm pretty sure he's going to get back into it. So
Yeah, I watched that show with him, and I hope he does. But you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. Like
yeah.
that momentum he had is gone.
Yeah, right. And now, there's a lot more voices in the space too, right? So,
Oh yeah.
and I'm glad that you kept on going too, because we started around the same time, 2019, 2020.
Yeah, 19.
2019.
Right there.
Oh yeah, 2019. There you go. Yeah, and I remember listening to you in the car on a ride to Ottawa. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, who's this Mark guy? All right, sweet. He's got a silky smooth voice. I'm like,
Yeah, baby.
do I sound like that? And then we did an episode. What was it? I think our first episode probably was in 2021 or 2020. But the fact that you've been able to break some really cool stories. I mean, the maid stuff was. Honestly, I didn't believe it until I saw you
Either
in
did
Ottawa. Because I saw the chat messages come through in a group chat I was in on Instagram, and I was like, seems sus. I don't know about that. It's like, no. Like, this is a buddy of mine. He has no reason to lie. I'm like, all right. And then I see you in Ottawa, and I'm like, oh, this is for real. This is a serious issue. Holy crap balls. This is not good.
How did that affect you when you saw that testimony that I did in Ottawa?
Man, it was great. It was great because what you did was important. It took a lot of balls, to be honest, because it was in a weird period. Like, when was that? 2022?
I think so.
Or 2021?
I
Because
think it was 22.
The censorship machine has been spooled up for a long time. I'm pretty sure I got hammered for it. And not so much the podcast, but like my ability to run ads and everything like that was just hammered for years because I was outspoken on a few things. And so for you just to be able to do that and go out on a limb, and being a client of Veterans Affairs too, I don't know. I've lost a lot of faith in most institutions, Veterans Affairs being one of them. And then since then, having more individuals be offered MAID and having one of them on my podcast, listen to his story, I'm like, okay, clearly this is systemic. Like, how is this possible? And then getting punted from like VAC to PCVRS. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
So for those that don't know what we're talking about, MAID is euthanasia.
Yeah.
Medical assistance to dying. It's euthanasia.
Yeah.
And what happened is I was kind of thrown into advocacy because a veteran who had been offered to be killed by Veterans Affairs Canada came to me and gave me the tapes of not the call where it was originally offered to him, but the apology call from Veterans Affairs Canada to him saying, yeah, we're really sorry. We're offered to kill you. And there were two apology calls actually. And he gave me the recordings for both. And I listened to them and I couldn't freaking believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe it. And I was listening to it personally. So the amount of pushback I had within veteran community and elsewhere, people are like, bullshit. There's no way that you call Veterans Affairs for help and they say, well, we can't help you, but we can kill you.
Yeah.
There's no way that happened.
Insane.
But it did. And it was systemic because it didn't just happen to him. After him, Christine Gauthier and it happened to her twice. One lady caseworker, one male caseworker. And both times, like, well, we can't get you that wheelchair elevator. It would just, I don't know, it sounds really expensive and they're like a giant pain in the ass. But have you heard of MAID? We can euthanize you.
Yeah.
You know, that happened.
Good on you for getting that sorted though. With was it not what organization did you help organize get that built for
Renos
her?
for Heroes was the one. Like, I tried everything, man, to get that done. Rebel News was helping. I was trying to get Sheila to do a mail out to all of Rebel News to do a fundraiser for it. It was originally $100,000 to build it, but now it's more.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't materialize. I got her on 3 different documentaries, you know, and after I got her on the front page of the National Post, right? I hooked that up, and then she was on Global and God knows how many different publications internationally. And even Jordan Peterson's wife had Christine on her podcast, on the Tammy Peterson podcast.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I had nothing to do with that one. But yeah, this all happened. And regardless of all that pressure, Veterans Affairs just washed their hands of it and would not get it done. But they said that they are going to get it done so that they can say, no, 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 we got this. And then they'd change their mind. So they would tease her with the wheelchair elevator and change their mind a couple of times, all for political purposes. They just didn't want to do it, especially after Christine embarrassed them by saying, hey, yeah, MAID was offered to me too.
Yeah.
They didn't like that. And yeah, it's beyond belief. But I know of half a dozen veterans that were all offered MAID. One of them is actually, 2 of them are suing the government right now. The lawyer of one of them actually just called me last week, and I helped that lawyer out, hooked him up with some resources to help make that case. So yeah, it's real. Government's getting sued for it, and Veterans Affairs Canada and the minister at the time, Minister McCauley, were all like, "Oh no, this didn't happen. Christine Gauthier a liar."
Yeah, I know. Like, keep on digging, dummy. You know, like,
yeah, keep digging that hole.
Yeah,
unfucking believable.
The British and the Americans, like, they can't wrap their heads around this because so I learned that Kelsey was talking about this on Piers Morgan.
So we're talking about Kelsey Sharon. She's
right.
a Canadian combat veteran who she was in the artillery. So a combat arms combat veteran. She's all of 5 feet tall, barely. And yeah, and she saw some horrific combat in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And she has really done something for herself. She's been made famous. It started with Kevin Hart, tweeted out her company, and it just kind of grew from there. She's been on all the major podcasts, on Jocko, on Lex Friedman, a bunch of other big ones, and has been on Jordan Peterson, and been on Piers Morgan twice, I think.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I'm pretty active in social media. That was a total blind spot. Like, I've communicated with her, and I was just like, man, I can't believe I didn't know about what you were doing. Like, to have such a high profile, like, how did it not pop up in my feed? Like, so I was like, is there like an active campaign to like not see cool shit that's happening? Or it's like, maybe it's just because I wasn't looking at like the fashion, like Brass and Unity stuff that she was creating. But I first learned about what she was up to because my business coach, who's in the UK, is like, what's going on with euthanasia with your soldiers in Canada? I'm like, what? I'm like, how do you know about that? He's like, well, one of your soldiers was on Piers Morgan. I'm like, what? What? So he's like, yeah, here's the link. I go, holy shit. Like, I've never heard about Kelsey. How's this even possible? He's like, I don't know. It's a pretty big deal here. And we're talking about it in the UK. I'm like, well, we're not really talking about it here in Canada because I don't know anything about this right now, which kind of blew me away. So,
because of what I did in Ottawa, I got to know the conservative government pretty well. I've been trying to get liberals on the show. They won't come. I can't
No,
get the ombudsman. They kept saying that they're going to do it, but then they don't do it. I can get anybody from the conservatives. Pierre Poilievre is the only one I haven't got yet, and I've got everybody else that's relevant. They've all been on the show, and so I've got a pretty decent relationship with them. When they form government, there's I'm going to try to influence some significant changes.
good.
One of them, and I'd like your input on it, is stolen valor. I want there to be a mandatory 2-week prison sentence.
Do they have something similar in the United States?
Yeah, all over the world, but ours is really toothless, and it's just a summary conviction is just a fine, you know. But I want to 2 weeks in jail minimum,
Hmm, hmm.
and I don't want to go to jail forever, but 2 weeks to sort of smarten up.
Like it's like smack on the nose, like bad dog. Like don't do that
Yeah,
again.
bad dog, don't do that, because if you don't have that, like just 2 weeks, 2 weeks in actual prison. If you don't do that, there's just too many people that are stolen valor. And I'm pretty sure I run into a couple more of them at the Stettler Legion during Remembrance Day ceremony. I'm going to be behind the scenes doing some digging on it, but I'm sick of it. I can't stand it anymore. I keep running into too many of them where people that either served and are wearing medals they didn't earn, or people with no service whatsoever, which is what I think I found yesterday. No service whatsoever, wearing medals and claiming service. The wearing medals part is just the worst.
I'm in Quebec, so we got a much different military. Like the military culture here is very low key, and like I mean, when I was going to my reserve unit, like we were told like do not wear your uniforms because like they would like spit on you and call you baby killers. Like it's not a good environment for the military. During the Afghan war is a little bit different. There's a little bit more patriotism, but it's Quebec, right? So I've never really seen because we don't.
What is
We
it
don't.
with liberals hating us? I don't get it.
It's weird because like I was like team liberal pretty much my whole life, and the only time I changed, like I only changed recently. I had
So was I.
I had that same shift, like.
I voted for Chrétien, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, Chrétien, Martin. The only time I voted NDP was because Tom Mulcair, like he lives in my neighborhood. He was my hockey coach back in the day. I'm like, I got to vote
like
for my
Jack
hockey
Layton.
coach.
I was a member of the NDP when Jack Layton was in charge.
Right. When there was like,
I like Jack.
Yeah, because he was a feisty kind of,
Well-spoken.
well-spoken dude. Like I was like, yeah, I'm not misaligned with any, but now I'm completely misaligned with everything that they do on that like left side. And that's the only reason why I think most guys have now become, whether you're pro-Trump or pro-Republican or pro-conservative, it's because I didn't change. You guys did. I can't be part of this anymore. Like
the lefties have always hated us, though. I was on a university campus when I was a young soldier in Vancouver Island. So that's when there was still hair regulations. So my haircut was quite clearly army guy.
Yeah.
And I asked this hippie girl to dance because she was really cute.
Yeah.
And never mind the armpits. And
it's an acquired taste, Mark. It's an acquired taste, man.
Yeah,
I've been to Europe a bunch of times.
You're not supposed to chew on them.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's nasty. That's
but I asked her, hey, you want to dance? And she looked at me, looked at my haircut. You an army guy? Yeah. I don't dance with baby killers.
Yeah.
Like, holy fuck.
It was just
and I hadn't been deployed yet. Nothing. It's like I didn't have a chance to kill any babies.
It's like, wow, it's a harsh statement. Okay, all right,
harsh.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't dance with baby killers.
Yeah,
holy moly! Like what type of brainwashing? But it's always been because that was 1992 or 93, and this is a university student, so somebody that's supposed to be smart, and so this is what they're being taught even back then.
Yeah, and now they just have they have a platform to kind of reinforce their own siloed beliefs too. And yeah, for me, I've just been, going back to the stolen valor stuff. I've never really, I don't think I've ever really seen it. And so it's never really been an issue for me, other than the fact that you'll laugh at this. I got accused of stolen valor like early on. I got early on in my like entrepreneurship career. So like I was running.
Accused by who? Another military person, or?
I can only assume it was another military person. The way they were writing sounded very military. So, you know, you can pick up on like the lingo.
Yeah.
And like he was just like hammering my ads, you know, like he's a piece of shit, stolen valor. He never went anywhere. But then my bros all ganged up. They're like, this is my picture of him in Afghanistan. This, like, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is literally us, like, on patrol. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then, yeah, the guy, like, I had to, you know, block him and everything like that. And I was so perplexed. I was like, look, why would you? So my interpretation was, you know, he's, you know, you know, your reticular activating system. So like if you go buy a Volkswagen, then all of a sudden all you see is Volkswagens on the street.
Yeah.
If you've attuned that to stolen valor, it will be so sensitive that a guy that you like, and this is, I think plays into like the tall poppy syndrome, where like as soon as you rise above the rest and start putting yourself out there, it's like we got to cut that guy down. And that's a very Canadian thing too. I've noticed that as soon as you start making more progress and doing things that are a little bit different than the rest and putting yourself out there and saying things that may not be like in line because you're taking a risk.
I've been lucky. There's only been a couple that have tried to smack me because I'm fairly well known now in our community, right?
Yeah.
There's only been a couple, and I have been accused of stolen valor once.
Oh, cool! What happened?
Yeah, I was really happy about it. It's like, yay, somebody cares enough to make an accusation, but it's totally legit because what this person was saying. So I used to train an RCMP SWAT team when I was a zero hook private. So that can't happen, right? Like, but it did. And because it didn't happen because of the military, it happened because of, I was doing cliff rescue. Okay. So the cliff rescue went to, I was like their rappel master. Well, you can't be a rappel master until you're a jack or a sergeant. Yeah. I was theirs.
Yeah.
I wasn't one in the military.
Army, yeah.
You know, I was really good with ropes because of my volunteer work outside of the Army, doing rope rescue. And so I was put in charge and I was throwing Mounties off a rappel tower, and on the base, they let us use it, and they had requisitioned me because I got the skills, and then it just grew from there. And we ended up in the bush, and I would be enemy force for them because I was requisitioned to be enemy force because of the rope rescue team that I was on. And after doing rope, being the bad guy, and they didn't do so well against an Army guy in the bush. The SWAT team kept getting defeated by me. And it's not hard. It's always like that. You put an infantry guy in with cops in the bush, and the cops,
not the same environment. Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not their wheelhouse. Right. Yeah. So they don't do well, and they're all thought they were bulletproof and John Wayne. So at some point, the yurt commander, who I'm still friends with today, name is Wally McHugh, said, Mark, you take command of the team to do the next attack. We'll use these other guys for enemy force. And so I was in command of a SWAT team, RCP Victoria Subdivision ERT team. What's going on? There's a noise going on outside my door. But yeah, so that happened. So the guy was calling bullshit, and that's good because you're right. It is impossible that that the Army would have sent me. The Army didn't send me. I was requisitioned. Mm-hmm. It's different, but it did happen. It's actually real. That's the only time I've been accused, and I don't mind at all.
You know what? Now we're talking about it. There was a second time I was on HLTA. I was back home. I was here in Montreal. Okay, yeah. And we're out.
Tell the
HLTA. I don't even know. I don't even know what the acronym stands for. It's just mid-tour leave for me. So like I was 3 or 4 months into my tour, so you get 28 days to go just relax a little bit. So I came home. It was right before fighting season, so I was like, I'll come home. I was going to go to Australia, but I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to surprise my relatives and my mom and stuff like that, and just come home. So I did, and naturally, I went out pretty much every night and just got shit faced, right? As a good sergeant should on HLTA. And so I'm having a pint. I'm standing to get another pint, and I don't know why the dude next to me asked. He's like, dude, you in the army? I'm like, yeah, man. Why are you asking? He's like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, and then like, he starts asking me like too many questions. And I'm just like, I'm deployed, man. I'm not just going to start like voluntarily giving you information, man. Loose lips sink ships, man. I don't give a shit. So he's like, you're not in the fucking military, are you? I'm like, I don't know where this conversation's going, bro. Like, I got short hair. I'm pretty fit. And then he just wouldn't stop. And I was like, all right, bro, like, how about I get my buddies? Because we're all like army bros, and we'll come down and we'll talk with your army buddies. Because clearly you got an axe to grind. Because he clearly either was in the military or, is in the military, and he just had an axe to grind because somehow I like insulted his military unit, or I don't know. It was just one of those weird interactions. I was like, that was so fucking weird. Like, he wouldn't let it go. And I didn't want to be forthcoming with information. So anyways, that was it. It didn't end up in anything. I just went back upstairs and drank some more beers. But yeah, I mean, I guess it can happen anywhere.
I ran into a stolen valor guy who's 100% guaranteed. Holy shit, stolen valor. He was part of the Okotoks Legion. And we were at, my son was in PPCLI cadets, and we were doing a thing. It's like the annual birthday or whatever of the 1st Special Service Force. So there's U.S. Green Berets and JTF folks there, all at the Museum of the Regiments in Calgary. And the first time I heard this guy, it was just the way he talks in a boisterous, braggadocious way that none of us ever talk, especially people that really did shit. Like, the most mild, easygoing dudes are actually the tier 1 operators.
Well, they're literally selected for that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, they're the most high speed, low drag, holy shit, super soldiers. And they're very low key, very low key. I've talked to enough of them that they're all like that. Mm-hmm. And this guy, I did this and I did that, and I was in the Southeast Asia. It was just the way he was doing it. I'm like, no, you weren't. But whatever. I just looked and saw who it was. He was bragging to a couple of glossy-eyed civilians that were like, wow, nice war story. And then later on, I'm sitting down with a couple of JTF people. We're talking about somebody that they served with, Devin Larratt, because I'm a big Devin fan. I'm an arm wrestler.
Arm wrestling champ, yeah.
I'm big into the arm wrestling community. I ran the Calgary Club for a couple of years. I'm looking at my arm wrestling table as we speak. My podcast studio is on one side. My arm wrestling gym is on the other. Nice. This is my sport. So we start talking about Devin Larratt. And they're like, oh yeah, and they're just telling me Devon stories, and we're having a great chat. And then the Southeast Asia guy, I made a very gentle RCR joke because I'm on Patricia, and that's what you do. And this guy goes, those chicken fucking sons of bitches, like really mean. I'm like, none of us talk like that, dude. Like, I actually have no legit beef with the RCR. They're my brothers. This is like, what are you talking about? But he just the most foul, angry, dishing on the RCR in a way that none of us ever have, that I've never heard in my life. Right. So he just totally shit in the soup. We're having this really nice conversation, and he just wrecks it. And then interrupts, and one of the JTF, and we're all just like trying to breathe through it, because here's these trained killers that are ready to, throat chop them. But they're just so kind and polite and well-tempered. And then one of the JTF guys looks at his bizarre medals and asks about, what's that one? He says, I can't tell you.
That's the best answer. That's the best answer. It's like,
he says it to a JTF operator, somebody who actually has top secret clearance and actually can't tell you about the majority of shit that they do. And I can't tell you, but there's no such thing as a secret medal, motherfucker. There ain't no such thing.
No,
there's no secret medals. If it was a secret, it wouldn't be on your chest.
A medal. Yeah,
it wouldn't be a medal.
Yeah.
There'd be a little citation on your very sealed records.
Yeah. Oh, that's
But,
crazy.
so yeah, stolen valor as fuck. And I'm still mad at myself because I didn't go to the Legion president in Okotoks and do anything about it. I just let it ride. But now I got another guy from yesterday, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this one ride.
Mm. Well, the Legion seems to be rife with that kind of stuff
Yeah,
too. I mean, I stopped going because it's just. I mean, I figured like, hey, Gramps used to go to the Legion. I guess I've been to war. I guess I got to go to the Legion too. And I went once, and I was like, nah, not my scene. See
yeah.
ya. You know, it just is what it is, right? They haven't adapted to the modern reality of veterans. I did see an ad on YouTube though the other day, which kind of surprised me. I went, huh? It's like this is on YouTube, huh? I'm like, it wasn't on like TV. It was on like YouTube. So
Hmm.
they're trying to encourage people to come and become members. And
Well, the reason it was a pub, right, is trying to help war buddies decompress. Well, throwing alcohol at people is, that's how they used to do it, but it's not the
yeah,
right way to do it. That is not how we commune anymore. That's not how
you're
we
right.
get together anymore. And it's supposed to be a place of gathering. If you want a
Hmm.
place of gathering for soldiers, turn them all into gyms.
Yeah. So kind of like what you have, you're like a hybrid. Like you have a gym podcast. Like my goal is to have the bunker too. You know, like I
Yeah.
want to have the podcast studio, the gym, a lounge area, so I can just hang out, do what I love to do, have the boys over, have a barbecue, and just hold events. That's it. And you're right. We're a lot more health conscious than even 10 years ago. That's my impression. Well, then again, I'm again reticular activating system. I'm more attuned to health and fitness, but I see a change happening, and I think it's not just within the veteran world because well, we're all human. At least I'm assuming, but we're all shifting towards a more of an awareness around our fitness and health, and what we've been doing over the last like 40, 50 years is just crushing us. Like we're
If you
more we're
we have the real estate, so if you turn the legions into gyms and still had like a meeting
or
room,
like
like
wellness centers, whatever you want to call them, right?
yeah,
Like I would be there in a second. I'd be there in a second.
well, the
It'd be
Veterans
amazing.
Association Food Bank has a section for acupuncture, right? And they got other rooms for counseling. So if that's what you did, it was a gym and a couple of medical rooms for like acupuncture
Yeah,
and whatever the
massage.
fuck else.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Cairo,
know,
whatever. Yeah.
a rub and tug, that'd be nice.
Hey man, it's Quebec. Who knows? Like
It's Quebec.
there's a lot of wild shit that can happen here.
I've been to
So
Montreal. It's a very different downtown. Rub and tugs all over the place. Yeah.
Montreal's not as dirty and grimy as it used to be. COVID like crushed the grime, which yeah, I don't know if it's a net benefit, but it is what it is. It's a different place now. I can't even I don't even recognize my downtown anymore, and the nightlife is completely dead. It's completely dead. Nobody goes out anymore. So yeah, the Montreal of old is I think dead. It's kind of like French boring Ottawa now, and that's not
Hmm.
good. It's just like it's empty at night. It's a weird place, man. I don't know if it's like that in all the other major Canadian cities, but Montreal at least was always like there's always something going on. Like there's always fun. Like, that's why I grew up here. I know it like inside out and backwards. But I mean, I know I'm a dad. I know I'm in my 40s. I know I'm not going out to party and go to clubs anymore, but most of the clubs are closed. There's, a few pubs are still open, but pretty much everything's closed. So that like griminess is pretty much gone.
COVID just caused a whole cultural change,
Big time.
and
Big time.
the amount of damage it's done, we won't be able to calculate it for a while until it's in the rearview mirror by a few more years
No.
to really look and graph out the cultural damage that's been done. Like there's been no good change as a result that I can see.
No.
The only good change actually is arm wrestling took off
Really?
because of COVID.
Okay.
Probably a lot of people had the same idea as me. That's when I kind of got into it because I figured, well, you can't take my arm wrestling table away from me. You're not coming into my garage to take that. So that's what I poured into, and COVID, people started watching arm wrestling. These big events were happening in Dubai and Turkey where they didn't have all these lockdown restrictions,
Right.
and that's what UFC had to do too.
Yeah.
I think they went to Dubai and other places
Yep.
where people were a little bit more sane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did an episode. It got pulled
Of course.
from you. I called it the single greatest peacetime policy failure in human history, and I referenced not because I know I'm
Well,
not an
don't do it
expert.
again.
I know I'm not an expert. I know I'm not an expert, but I can read. I have a background in research, and so therefore I can pull stuff and synthesize an argument. And so the argument was pretty clear. Like the doctors that are saying don't do this, they're experts too. You know, it's not because they're on the other side of your opinion that they're wrong. That's not how this works. You're supposed to come
Yeah,
to a
but everybody
consensus.
was attacked. Anybody that was throwing up warnings, there's entire organizations, the Canadian Health Alliance, like there's so many groups, and they're just ignored.
Yeah,
Ignored, or if somebody can't be ignored, then they're hammered, they're attacked
yeah,
for their reputation. Character assassination comes out, and it's just both barrels, because guess who owns most of the media? You know,
yeah.
the people that are making a hell of a lot of money off the record profit products that were coming out and being bought and paid for by the government.
By our tax dollars, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to get at with my new book is that nobody's coming to save you, man.
No,
It's not VAC, it's not your doctor, it's you. You got to listen to the people that are providing free information to sort your life out. So
so what's the name of your book again?
it's called Harden the Fuck Up.
Harden the fuck up, bitches.
Yeah.
And so I thanks for sending it to me 5 minutes before you came on the show.
Now you're getting to know me a little bit better, Mark.
I'm not really a speed reader,
Now you're
but
getting to know me a little bit better. Oh, I was like, oh shit, I should have sent this to you a few days ago, shouldn't I have?
yeah. But I did go through the first few pages and stuff. And how would you summer up the premise of the book? Summarize
Summer up.
the
Yeah.
sum up.
Got it.
How would you sum up the
Got
premise of the book?
The most important thing that you need to do, or the most important things you need to do, is you need to harden up. And hard, I broke it down into an acronym for happy, aggressive, ready, and disciplined. And the goal is to essentially find your new paradigm and find your new paradigm around health, because we, as you know, it's written mainly to the veteran. We have a unique standing because we have all been through some sort of basic training. We've all been fit. A lot of civvies out there have never experienced that. So in our minds, we have this standard. But then when we get out, we lose that standard, and that hurts our ego. But then the ego also prevents us from taking the next steps, because we're like, I fell so far from where I used to be. How do I even start? Because I want to be in the gym lifting 400 pounds on a deadlift, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I just won't start at all, because likely you just have to start with a walk. And I can't tell you how many folks that, I've helped coach, and it was hard, right?
We were in shape because of external discipline, right?
And
Like
then
we
when
didn't
you're
have a
out,
choice.
it has to be intrinsic. Yeah.
Then it has to be internal discipline when you get out, because there's nobody that's going to put you on charge parade if you don't make it to PT on time.
Mm-hmm.
You're 2 minutes late. That's 5 extras. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. So it's to really reestablish your love of feeling healthy again. And I can tell you from experience, you get to a point where you don't realize that, like, you feel like shit so often that just becomes your baseline. And then the idea of like feeling better just kind of washes away, but you can 100% feel better and get into a next level. And there's a way to do it. And in this case, it's first, just listen and then take action. And everything in here, there's 19 chapters from 19 of the best experts on the planet, doctors and physical therapists and mindset experts, psychologists, you name it, that just lay it all out for you, and you can read it and you can apply what you think is best. And then I summarize it all at the end with a 30-day plan that you can take to the bank.
I want to share a quick little story with you, then I want your feedback off it.
Mm-hmm.
Just this summer. So this past summer, from my tour, there's a core little group of dudes that I just love to death. And I would be there for them no matter what, just drop and go. And one of those guys has been isolating himself like a lot of us do.
Yep.
And so I cold called him. I just showed up at his house and out of the blue, and he was glad for it. And I knew he wouldn't, that he would be glad for it, because it was the only way I could get a hold of him, because he changed his damn number. So we had a nice visit. It took me a while to even recognize him, though, because he was up to 300 pounds and he's only about 5'7".
Hmm.
And I think he was actually north of 300. And I'm like, is this my friend?
Yeah.
Like, are you in there somewhere? But the conversation that we had, I was only there about an hour with my youngest son. The conversation that I had with him, there was something about it that reminded him that he's a warrior, that reminded him of the badass soldier, because we were on tour together, like we're in a freaking combat zone. And there was just something about it. I talked to him last week. He had lost, 90 pounds?
Wow.
Something like that. And it was just as simple as remembering who the fuck you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember who you are, because one of the maxims that I have, there's not many maxims, like almost everything's up for discussion, but one maxim that I have is that you treat yourself the way you believe you deserve to be treated. In other words, you cannot rise above your level of self-concept. So if you see yourself as a warrior, then you're going to treat yourself as a warrior, and you're going to do the things that warriors do, be, do, have. And something about that just clicked, and he's changed everything. And he just taken control. He decided to insert internal discipline, and he's turned his life around. And it was just because of a 1 hour conversation that we had. And I didn't even think that that's what I was trying to do. I mean, we were just talking, and I was talking about somebody else, another one of us from a tiny little group of us that died of cancer because he wouldn't stop drinking. The drinking throws gas on the fire for cancer, right?
Yep.
It's an immune response. He wouldn't stop drinking. He would have beat the cancer, would have beat it 100%, but he wouldn't stop drinking. So it killed him, and his wife and kids are there without a dad now because he would not stop drinking. And I tried to help him, but he just wouldn't listen. I said, look, dude, I got the path. I can get you off the booze. 100%. I've done it before. I'll do it again. I can hook you up. Wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And he's dead. And there's something about that he related to his own health and the size of him. And like 90 pounds gone.
That's amazing. Yeah. And ultimately that's the point. You never know what you're going to say or what you're going to read or that's going to completely change your life. Right. And it could be something as simple as, hey, like, did you know that if you walked like 8,000 steps a day, your chances of all-cause mortality goes down by like 1.5 times, which is insane. So you don't have to.
What is that, about 5Ks?
Yeah, about that. Like if you do about a 20-minute, like I always say, like the bare minimum is a 20 minutes of activity a day. And that doesn't need to be walking. If you're at the gym, cool. But most people don't want to go to the gym because that's like 3 steps down the line. If you just literally make the habit of going for a walk every day, and like we're doing a challenge right now, my Veterans Getting Fit AF community, to literally just establish that habit. You could garden for 20 minutes. Just do something. If you don't move, movement creates movement. So if you don't physically move, psychologically, you're just going to be stuck. And so physically, you're going to be stuck. And kind of like similar to what you said, I have the mantra, look good, feel good, do good. We have such an unlimited potential to do so much good in our countries, like both US, UK, Canada, et cetera, as what I call like a smaller next greatest generation, because we fought wars for 20 years, man. And it was a very small community that did all the fighting. There was no draft. It was just all individuals that volunteered to go over and over and over again. So we've taken a lot of battle damage. So now it's time to heal.
Yeah, well, 9/11 was a hell of a recruiting tool.
Like it's insane when you think about it, I only had one kick at the can, but I have friends at 3 tours. It's like, holy shit. Like, I'm sure guys that probably have 4, maybe even more deployments.
8.
Oh my God. Like, that's so much battle damage.
That's a lot of war.
So,
Yeah.
that's more than the World War II veterans ever. So, because they didn't have the same system, it was you went to war and you came back when you won.
Yeah. When people talk about World War II, it's like, even another veteran, so-called friend, said that I'm not a real veteran. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about,
Yeah.
dude? And we just like to douche on each other. But one 6-month tour is more wartime than most World War II veterans, because what point did you get into the war over those 5 years? Like, not too many people like my granddad showed up on day one and stayed for the whole thing. Right. Either you got wounded and you came back, or you showed up late to the game like the Americans did. They were 2 years later than us, so it was just a 3 or 4 year war for most of them. It was 6 months to a year. That's the amount of time that they had. And then that was it. Right. And that's their entire military time, all told, like from training to I'm out, a couple of years.
Yep.
Max,
Precisely.
as far as actual time, right? Like, that's it. So I got 4.5 years. I'm not a real veteran. What?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the point's moot, right? It just doesn't make it. And so the fact that we have careers in this now, it totally changes the game, because we've yet to, and we're starting to slowly scratch the surface of how do we heal from all of this trauma? Like, it's physical and psychological. And there's a lot of great modalities out there, but we're just starting to kind of find them and piece them together, and so I cover topics like psilocybin and psychedelics, like that has its place in the veteran community. I think it's a veteran community that's pushing that the most as a healing modality, just in general, which I didn't really see coming, but it's clearly a thing.
Yeah, and ketamine is big.
Yeah.
The soft community is big on dual sympathetic stellate ganglion block.
Yeah.
With coupled with ketamine and talk therapy.
I talk about it actually, because I don't know if you talked to Tom and Jen Satterley from the All Secure Foundation.
No, a lot of the JTF guys are going to Chicago to see a guy. His name is Dr. Eugene Lipov, and to get dual sympathetic is the stellate ganglion block goes into like vagus nerve, I think.
Yeah.
But there's one on each side, and most of them just do it on one side, which only works like 73% of the time or something like that. So it's like, well, just do it on both sides, but you can't do it same day. You need a 24-hour gap, or you can stop breathing. So not a good side effect. Oh, I can't breathe.
Yeah, the vagus nerve is kind of important. Like,
yeah, you kind of need that.
That's heartbeat, breathing.
Yeah,
it's kind of important.
Yeah. So you don't want to euthanize yourself. So zap into one neck one day, 24 hours later, zap in the other neck, and then which makes the ketamine therapy so much more effective, because you're not going up such a steep hill. The stellate ganglion block knocks the head off the monster, right? Like, totally turns down the volume on the PTSD big time. And then the ketamine's able to do its work if it's guided, and you have an actual, like, just popping the pill and going for a ride. I'm sure it has some benefit, but guided with a therapist is way better.
Yeah.
To help walk you through it. But they're all doing that. These JTF operators, because it's not offered in Canada. So they've got to go to the fucking Chicago to get it done.
Yeah, I know. The All Secure Foundation, their foundation is for SOF soldiers internationally. So anybody can go down, and they do I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same doctor that they have in their organization. But same with, ayahuasca and psychedelic therapy and retreats. They're all in Mexico or the United States, because we just haven't opened up that modality for whatever reason. I again, to bring it back to Kelsey Sharon, like, she was just on the news talking about, why isn't this opened up yet? Like, this needs to be opened up as a way to treat people, because people are literally dying.
Because there's a hell of a lot of money in SSRIs, even though they don't work.
because they don't work in, you know, I work with the Grunstyle Foundation. They started a new initiative called Prescribing Suicides, and talking with Tim Jensen about it, you know, like it's, you know, stories of guys that were, you know, kind of like, you know, me in the sense that things weren't going well, but I wasn't suicidal. It's just like, I feel like everything's a grind. What the fuck, you know, like a white knuckling, and goes to the VA. He's like, I got problems. I'm trying to sort them out. Like I got a family, I got a job. They're like, oh, here, take these SSRIs. And within a few weeks, he's blown his brains out. It's like, whoa, how did
Yeah,
that
it's one of the
happen?
noted side effects. Like
Of course,
it's actually
of
on the
course.
label.
Of course. And it's just like, why are we still doing this same, we keep on doing these same treatments, and we're not getting better results. I mean, it's 150,000 American veterans have committed suicide, and it just, the total just keeps on going up and up, and 150,000. I think they only have like 30 something odd thousand combat deaths since
It's like
Vietnam.
4 or 5 to 1 at least of combat
It's
deaths to suicide. I attempted suicide in 21,
right.
and wasn't easy telling my family. You know, thank goodness I survived it. But everybody understands that the life that we have right now is a life custom made for me
Mm,
to keep me level, so that that doesn't happen again, because you don't often get through it. You know, it was a psychotic break I had. I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. My
mm.
brain was not working. I was in total overload, and I was like detached from reality while I'm trying to open up my wrist, thinking this will be fun.
Yeah, I remember you telling me, it's like you were just like looking at yourself doing it, and you're like, that's yeah, that's wild shit, man. But
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, like, were you taking an SSRI?
No.
Okay.
I was in a state of overwhelm. The talk therapy that I was doing at the time, and I'm not discouraging talk therapy. It was the carpenter, not the tools. I had a really bad talk therapy therapist, like really bad,
Okay.
and made everything worse using
Mm,
particular techniques like ART and doing it wrong. So, just as one example, it's not the only example. It's just the example I like to use. I'm the only guy I know that hit a tripwire and didn't go boom. So I already had a dead friend at the time. He was on the tour, so like 30 years ago, man. And trying to get through when I hit that tripwire, they held me in that micro moment, you know,
mm.
like a fraction of a second of hitting the wire and going, uh-oh, for like 18 hours. So 1 second lasted 18 hours, give or take. And it did so much damage, but not just that, but it was like that with all the big events, right? And there were numerous big events. Um, so they made it worse instead of better. All my symptoms got worse. I got brand new symptoms that I've never had before in my life, all
Mm.
because of the therapy. And that's why now I'm 100% and living off of veterans benefits,
Hmm.
right? I probably would have got better with a good therapist, and I probably wouldn't be on veterans benefits. I'd probably be in the workforce.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't get better. I got worse, and now to the point where I can't work.
Mm. Well, it's funny because I I talk with the one of the heads of the psychology department here at McGill. He's a British veteran, actually. He's a UK veteran, and he's written books on like men and mental health. And the conversation we had, he's like, you know, the whole like model we have is not what the literature says, right? Like, men are not supposed to continue with talk therapy once they're past the acute kind of like panic stage. That's just kind of like talk you down and get you kind of comfortable. He's like, you have to go out and do things, not keep on talking, because we don't, our brains don't work that way. We have to go out and do like excursions. We have to go fish. We have to go literally hunt. He's like, this is all well documented. He's like, but everything is geared towards a very feminized model, and also insurance. So you have to go see your therapist. Vax says you have to go see your therapist. It's like, okay, but if I want to go on like a Warrior Adventures Canada trip, that might have more benefit. And based on the research, yeah, it definitely will. It's like shoulder to shoulder. He says men need to heal shoulder to shoulder.
The nervous system needs to reset,
Yeah.
and it's tough to do that by cranking it up to 11, by
Yes.
reliving. And I've learned that you don't need to feel it to heal it.
Mm.
No, you don't. No, you don't. That's a lie. You don't need to feel it to heal it. You don't have to be re-traumatized. One of the modalities that, I don't know if it did anything for me, because I'm doing so many things at the same time, but 22-0 is a form of neurolinguistic programming. It has a very, very high success rate. In Montreal, there's, what the hell's her name? It'll come to me. But Genevieve Boudreau, and she does reconsolidation therapy. I think it's done with ketamine assistance.
Okay.
There's just so many, and they have really high success rates. But yeah, but the system is not friendly to any of it. It doesn't support any of it. So what we need, actually, I had Aaron O'Toole on the show, and he had the perfect idea, which is we should have a health passport.
Like for veterans, you mean?
For veterans. Okay. And we don't need something where you don't need a prescription from an MD for it to be valid, because that's what we need. Right? If you go through Medivie Blue Cross and you say, I want to try acupuncture, they're like, no, you got to get a prescription from a medical doctor. Well, where in the fuck am I going to find one of them? And where am I going to find one that would do a prescription for acupuncture? Like, all these different modalities fight with each other, and they say that's quackery. Well, but you got to meet people where they're at. So quackery or not, doing something is better than doing nothing. But they like, no, here's the box, stay in the box. You try to go outside the box, we won't let you. So, and we sure won't fund you, and we sure won't pay for it. And that's wrong. Like, I want to go on a hunting trip or something to reset my nervous system. That's what we need.
Well, and long term, it would cost them less too, right? Because your time frame, like I've been in, so since I actually got in touch with VAC and started doing stuff, I've been like bouncing around in the system for 6 years, 7 years. Why? Like, why? This doesn't make any sense. This isn't rehabbing anything. And to be honest, I figured all my rehab out on my own because I wasn't getting any help. So I figured it all out: physical therapy, osteo, everything, you name it. And the other thing you're bringing up, like, we don't have VA doctors. We don't have anybody within the like the Americans. They complain about it. But I'm like, yeah, but at least you guys have doctors that know veterans, so they don't have to get explained like, hey, I was in combat in Kandahar.
We don't even have military hospitals anymore, right?
And we don't even have like the one. It's literally down the street from me. It's part of the province, and it's a shit show now. So it's in the provincial healthcare system. We don't have a single institution in Canada that takes care of veteran health. That is really, really bad. So I have to go through my regular doctor, and he always asks the same question. He's like, why are you asking for these tests? I'm like, dude, I was exposed to burn pits, bro. Do you know what those are? He's like, no idea. I'm like, I might have, post-concussion syndromes. Like, I got my head beat in a lot. He's like, why would you need to test for that? I'm like, So every time I go, it's always a struggle to get something. And then on top of that, to make an appointment.
Yeah, there's no GP that has the slightest clue about any of it.
Zero.
Mefloquine poisoning, TBI. They got no idea.
Nothing. None. And they're like, how can you have all of this? You're a young man. I'm like, dude, I was in combat. Like, I did some wild stuff. Like, of course I'm going to have some things. Like, that's like, I have physical injuries, but I also have like potentially like hormonal ones too that I'm just trying to figure out.
And having to explain ourselves and defend, justify, and explain is the worst.
It's terrible, man. And then on top of that, it takes a year, in my case, to get an appointment. I was like, hey, can I get a follow-up? They're like, sure. And like, I went in like March of this year. They're like, okay, so we've got one coming up on March like 16th. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like in 2 weeks. They're like, oh, no, in 2025. I went, whoa, what? What? No, I want to follow up like now, like not in, they're like, well, doctor's got a lot of people on his plate. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm going to go private. I'm going to spend the $2,000 a year to have a private doctor that I can call and actually talk to and like figure things out, because that's the unfortunate reality here, is that if we want anything to get prescribed, quote unquote prescribed, or actually get a test done, I'm doing all my blood work with an American veteran owned company that I met in Atlanta the other month, down at the military influencer conference, because they just you don't need to mess around. Like, it's just like, yeah, brother, we got you. These are the tests you need to do. Like, you're worried about, yeah, we got it. Like, hormones checked. We're going to do all these extra ones too. I'm like, I can't even get this test in Canada. Like, this is insane. They're like, yeah. And then after that, like, we can definitely support you. We just can't send medication across the border. So we could send it to a friend if you got some. I'm like, yeah, I got a best bud in New York. He's like, perfect. So if we go down that road, like, we have a protocol. He's like, we work with all kinds of Canadian folks and veterans. But the unfortunate reality is that we can't send medication across the border, and you guys have a shit system to support veterans. So we'll pick up
all
the
the best resources are outside of the system. And that's why my show exists, because I find these resources, and it's all charities, right? Warrior's Heart, all of them, it's all charities.
Yeah.
And so my show is the only place that I'm aware of where you can go and find something that's close to you. You know, it's very North America centric. But where else do you go? It's not like the list that I have on my show is not on back. It's not at the American VA. It's not at the Legion, right? I've compiled the list. It's right here. I have the resources. I'm on 0 boards, 0, to say, hey, what resources have you discovered are really good? Like, what do you suggest we should be exploring? No phone calls. There probably will be. I'm going to ask to be on an advisory team when the Conservatives take control and form government, and hopefully they'll let me do that, because it's not hard. You know, I know where all these resources are. I know what works and what doesn't. I know some of them anyway. I know more than anybody else in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, we definitely.
Who else?
We definitely need to team up a little bit more on that, because I talk with Blake and his team regularly too. So instead of doing things on your own silos, like, I think.
Well, they need a team of us, like me, you, and Kelsey, actually, because she's been finding all kinds of good stuff.
Yep.
The people that are the movers and shakers that are networked, like me and you and Kelsey and whoever else, mm-hmm.
have
us as an advisory board, because you know shit that I don't. I know shit that you don't.
Precisely.
And, so if we can put all of that network together, mm-hmm. And then get access to these programs through Veterans Affairs, like with a health passport, like what Aaron O'Toole said. I've just met 2 JTF guys, and they're trying to do this. They're trying to put it all together. I've got to follow up with them and get them on the show. I even forget the name of their organization, but they're trying to do something like that.
Oh, well, I'd love to have guys like that on my show too. So if you make that happen, then for sure, let me know too, because, you kind of, at some point you pick a lane, right? So for me, mine's fitness. And the other thing that I'm really, I'm kind of pressing on is the lack of give a shit about toxic exposure here in Canada, because working so much with the Americans, their PACT Act is the largest piece of legislation, workplace injury legislation in history on planet Earth. So it's from Vietnam era veterans up until modern era veterans. If you are exposed to the toxic shit that is ubiquitous in war, you can have if you get a funky, like, gnarly cancer, it's service related. They have the protocol in place. They don't go, oh, well, how do we, you only got this 5 years after you've been released. How do we know it's from breathing in
they do the exact
dust?
opposite in Canada. Agent Orange was an actual thing in Gagetown, totally buried. Methylquin poisoning, totally buried. I'm one of the guys, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but the red dirt in Croatia.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yep.
I'm one of those dudes that was, and we all signed, yes, I was exposed to the shit. I'll probably die of cancer now. And we all signed this document that the medical officer had us all sign. And then the CEO was like, holy shit, what did you do? No, I'm going to be liable because I knew that was toxic sand. So they pulled it out of all of our medical docs, but there's a few of us that were reservists that returned to units, so they still have it. So they weren't able to destroy them all. And
It's
they did
insane.
a big, for the audio audience, I'm doing air quotes right now, investigation.
Oh yeah, a typical Canadian Armed Forces investigation. Yeah, air quotes.
Yeah, it was just like the VAC investigation, air quotes, which of course found nothing. And unbelievable. Zero people went to jail. But because of it, well, we're not liable because we did an investigation.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's Canada like 101, right?
Yeah.
The perception of, hey, we're like a big happy family and we're nice and we don't take care of anybody, especially our soldiers, man. As soon as you get a little bit cranky and you start bringing things up,
we take care of gender studies in Nigeria because that's important.
The abuses of power, like, and it's almost alarming at the level of abuse that's been going on recently, but it's not recent. It's part of our system. We have rules and regulations. Let's say KRNOs, but exactly like the way we fight, we don't follow the rules. We're like legendary when it comes to fighting war because we're unpredictable. But the other side of that coin is we also don't follow any of our own legislation or our own rules when it comes to admin. And it's case in point, like what you're talking about. Like that's not
we're rolling now.
Cool. Yeah, like the things that the CAF did to its own troops due to the mandates. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the statement of claim of the 330 that Valo
from
Law.
Catherine Christensen.
Yeah, it's the one that was like the most troubling was the torture of that young private from Valcartier. That they went on Andy Stump's podcast like to talk about it. Like, you put a kid out in the freaking cold in Valcartier in Quebec City. It's like minus 30, 40, and like made him stand out there and like eat his lunch out there and have people like parade past him and like insult them and stuff like that. Like you can't do that with a prisoner of war
because he wouldn't get the jab.
Yeah, that's it. I was just like, that is so insane. Like, why isn't that captain fired? Why isn't her boss fired? Like that you can't do. They had websites with people's medical files exposing them for not taking the shot. Like it's just so perverse that I couldn't even wrap my head around it. Like no matter what people's opinion is, like that's wrong on so many different levels, but it just happened. And I was watching their, court proceedings.
Well, that's what happens when you dehumanize people.
100%. 100%.
Once you anti-vaxxer. Well, in that case, we can torture you.
Like it's just,
and we can do whatever we want. Take your career away, fire you, whatever I want, because we just labeled you as an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
Sorry,
so
no weights for you.
Yeah. Sorry. The typical process of like, going to like a, review board and that, no, we're just going to throw that out. And we're just going.
You don't deserve it anymore.
You don't deserve it anymore. Like our rules do not apply to you. You're disgusting. Leave.
No, you're not a Canadian anymore. You're not even a human.
It was just such a troubling time, and that's that's what helped me write the book. I'll be honest, because I just needed to vent, like and put stuff on paper, and kept on doing the podcast, which was great.
Well, the funny is,
so much.
like the bad guys never know that they're the bad guys.
Yeah. Well, unless you have enough ability to like be conscious and be like and have like some self-awareness, be like, wait, is what I'm doing that? Hold on a sec.
Am I the baddie here?
Oh fuck, am I the bad guy?
Is it like the occasional Nazi that went, wait a second, I'm calling Jews vermin. Am I the baddie?
Yeah.
Because there's no difference.
That Unit 60, what was the Jocko talks about? Oh no, Peterson talks about that book, the police unit that was given the instructions to go to Poland, and then they were just regular like guys like you and me,
The brown
dads.
shirts.
I don't know if it was the brown shirts. It was a police unit. And, they just started with regular policing. And then slowly the atrocity started. And then they just started all in. I don't know if I'm pretty sure they were police. And it was just an example of like how your psychology changes as soon as you're given enough uh, leeway to treat people and to be told that these people they're not really human, man. Like they're below you. Like do whatever you please, even though deep down inside you're like still a good human being.
Yeah, and no consequences, and in fact, it's encouraged.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it didn't get to the point where we were committing atrocities in the sense that we weren't going out and actively like killing people. But here in Quebec, I don't know if you saw how bad it got, but like we had the curfew. And then on top of that, they're like, when are we going to start putting these people in camps? And I was like,
I don't know.
holy shit.
We have made, and we're euthanizing people because they're poor, or we're
Or
euthanizing them because they're sad.
yeah, I mean, or a veteran that's grumpy because they don't have a
Yeah.
ramp.
One dude, 23 years old, he was deaf. They killed him.
Veteran or
No,
civic.
Civilian. It's like, okay, you qualify.
There's so much I need to. There's so much more on that topic I need to get educated on. Because at face value, I'm like, okay, at 89, like you're suffering, like you're just full of cancer, like I could make the case, like, hey, man, I don't want to.
Oh, sure.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be just doped up for the last like 6
That's
months
what it
of
was
my life.
supposed to be. Like when it first came out in 2015, 2016, whatever it was. End of life, like my dad passed away a year and a half ago, coming up on 2 years. And I mean, he was done, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no fixing this. He was on his way out. So do we hustle this along, or make it a little bit easier? Die with dignity is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so like, because the last 48 hours, did you really need those? Probably would have been easier if we just gave you the needle. And he considered it, but we didn't do it because he didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But under those circumstances, yeah, okay, fine. You got some horrible, painful disease, and you would like to punch out a little bit early so that you don't suffer. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But now it's for anybody. And they're saying, well, it's not available for mental health yet. They tried to make it 2 years ago available for mental health. In other words, zero benefit to entry, no benefit to entry whatsoever. You want it, you got it. Period.
Yeah.
And well, so this young man, 23, on Vancouver Island, he's deaf. Now he's dead because he asked for MAID. And so the criteria that, well, he's deaf, and that's a irremediable condition. Like you can't fix that. And it affects his quality of life, and he wants to die. So we'll kill him because he's deaf, was the justification. No, he's got depression. It has nothing to do with being deaf.
Well, no kidding. Like, I mean,
so it's already available for mental health.
Yeah,
they say it's not, but it is.
That's so messed up. That is so messed.
And other people, they're losing their home and they're ending up homeless. They're like, well, I don't want to live on the streets. Might as well just kill me. And that's happening.
We're in such a dark place here. I don't know what the hell happened. I've been a proud Canadian my whole life. I don't know what has happened to the point where, like, I never just assumed that like everything would be hunky dory. Like, you got to have work to have your society work, right? You got to actually put in the work. But the last like 6-7 years, it's really made me realize, like, man, I can't just idly look at this as something that is always going to function well. I got to be an active participant. And part of the reason why I kept on doing the podcast, right, is, well, what can I actually affect? And I went to Jordan Peterson's live seminar in Ottawa a few years back, and he said the same thing. He goes, if everybody here, it was in the Ottawa Scotiabank place, he's like, if everybody here just went back to their communities and took on one bit of civic responsibility, whether it's going to your local school or going to the church, or he's like, in 5 to 10 years, our entire country would be completely remodeled. But it's
Mhm.
not going to change unless you make it happen. You guys are like the normal, even keeled, responsible people. But the reason why you don't get involved is because you're so busy being responsible, like with your job, with your family, with, he's like, but
Well, it's a lot of
you can't
time.
abdicate it.
Like this show takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
For a while, it was more than 40 hours a week,
Mm.
and my whole family had to dance around me because the studio's in the house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
Uh, Now I've scaled that back. I'm only doing 1 or 2 a week. I won't do more than that. Like I'm doing another show tomorrow, but I'm picking and choosing. Like I'm not having just anybody on anymore. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I've had nothing but fantastic guests, but I have to be more discerning now because there's so many people banging on my door. I want to be on your show. I want to be on your show. Yeah, I do this for free. So fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be 1 or 2 a week max.
Yeah.
Max.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, because I'm doing it for free, and it's not always easy on me. Some of these shows kick the shit right out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so no. But that's why people don't. More people aren't getting engaged. So many people have 2-3 jobs just to keep the lights on.
Yeah. No, it's completely wild, man. Like being from Montreal, it was always the cost of living was always quite low because, well, the separatists really helped with that. So housing costs were rock bottom always. And because I was working with the CAF for so long, like the salaries were pretty good. So I was able to buy my first house.
Well,
And
this is the point of inflation. Like the reason that we have this carbon tax and all these extra taxes, and liberals love to tax you like crazy, is because it's a boot on your neck. And while that boot is on your neck,
yeah,
you're
subservient to them.
You're subservient. You don't have time to protest. You don't have time to complain because you got
right.
2-3 jobs, or you're picking up extra shifts, or whatever the case may be.
Yep, precisely. That's exactly it. And
that's why all these taxes are there. They're just to keep you off the streets. And
yeah, of course. Because I mean, we're seeing it now. Like something happened last week. I can't put my finger on it, but the stock market and everybody all of a sudden has a new sense of optimism. I can't quite put my finger on it, but
not everybody.
But well, not everybody. But and it's going to be, it's going to be contagious here in Canada as well. It's not just localized in the United States. So, the time.
How do you feel about Poilievre?
So my initial impressions weren't great because I was more Team Trudeau, right? Like I was excited that he got elected because I was like, yeah, young dude from Montreal, freaking rights. He's going to legalize weed. It's about time. I wasn't,
which I do appreciate.
Yeah, but I wasn't really dialed in, right? Like I just started my family. I wasn't really making money. Like I just had my son. I just bought my first house. So for me, politics wasn't really a thing. Like I was just like, okay, he's gonna give free weed to veterans. Cool. Like he was at the Gord Downey's last concert. I'm like, that's cool. He's a boxer. He's fit. Cool. Why not? I didn't really put much thought or time and effort into like really understanding where they want to go with the country or know really who he was as a person because I didn't care. But now, therefore, like to answer your question, when I would hear Poilievre speak, I was like, who's this kind of whiny, like snotty dude, right? Because I was kind of on Team Liberal, so I was like, I dismissed him. But his evolution over the last few years, I'm quite impressed, to be honest. And I like his rhetoric. Again, I don't have much faith in Canadian politicians, so that's my reticence. It's not like the Conservatives are like any better at helping veterans and their plight than the Liberals, in my opinion. So will they change? My opinion is that that yes, they will help things change just because of like interactions with guys like Blake. It seems like he gives a shit. So
Blake
if
Richards seems legit to me.
he seems legit to me, he asks questions. I've been on calls with him where he actually says, I don't know. I'm like, what? A politician said, I don't know. Oh, okay. That's humble. Awesome. I can get behind that. So, and also, Polyev comes from, like a middle class, like regular upbringing. That to me weighs the scale a lot in his favor. And so I think he'd be a good change for the
Nine
country. And
years ago when Trudeau got voted in, I didn't vote for him, but I wasn't too worried about it. It's like, oh, okay.
it is what it is. Like either way, whatever. Yeah.
Like he said the odd thing that I kind of liked and it gave me some optimism. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, he might not be so bad. Legalizing weed. I think, well, that makes sense. Like, why is that a crime? It's a plant. Leave it
Yeah.
alone. Um, but man, had I known.
It's almost I didn't think a prime minister could have such an effect on the country, because for me the prime minister didn't have that much weight, right? They're not a president. So it's like, yeah, you know what, Canada's
You're
good
wrong about
governance,
that.
but clearly I'm wrong.
A PM has more power. The Canadian PM has way more unilateral power than a U.S. president because they have the three separate branches of government, right?
Yeah, separate and
These
equal.
these ordering councils, these OICs that our PM can do, they're a lot like the executive orders in the States, only more powerful. The executive orders are actually more powerful than they were ever meant to be. They were meant to make little tiny decisions like let's put some new curtains up in the Oval Office, and I just want to do it. Executive order. That is supposed to be for little stuff like that. And now it's given the president way too much power. But the orders in council, the Canadian PM has more power than anybody else in the G7. There's no other G7 country that has so much unilateral power as a Canadian prime minister. So if Pierre Poilievre is the real deal, he'll actually throttle that back, like in law, so that prime ministers can never be that powerful again, like George Washington did. He could have been a king. He was offered it, actually. Like, here you go. You can just be a king. You just be a dictator. He's like, no, that's not what we're trying to build here. So he abdicated and let's just stay with the system. Thanks for offering me to basically be a king, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Whereas if you made that offer for Trudeau, he'd be like, oh yeah, I'm the king. He'd
jump
it's
gonna be great. Everybody loves me. I'm the best. Yeah. I just, I'm this conversation I've had with other friends, and also talking to Catherine Christensen so many times about just law and constitution. It's a real education, because we don't teach this stuff in school, right? We didn't earn our constitution in blood. It was handed down to us. I think a lot of those things create an inability to generate like a myth around who we are as a country and what we're doing as a country, because clearly our constitution isn't worth the paper it's written on, because COVID proved it. Like there was zero respect for the Constitution. I live in a province that doesn't respect the Constitution. So how do you respect veterans? Like there's a meta problem, and then there's like the sub problems that come about from it. Well, it's like, why do we give a shit about anything if there's no repercussion if you don't give a shit? And that to me is like the underpinning of who we are as Canadians. There is literally nobody that can actually drop the hammer, because that person is technically the king, and that is never going to happen in a million years. So the PM can do what he wants, the CDS can do what he wants.
That's why the US isn't a democracy, it's a democratic republic. The difference is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think what it can be boiled down to is that their oath of allegiance is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. All soldiers, law enforcement officers, government officials, presidents, they all
the Constitution. Yes.
To the Constitution.
Yes. And not to the president. Yeah.
And who do you and I? Who did we pledge allegiance
to? Charlie. Well, Liz. It was Liz.
To whoever the sovereign is at the time. So I pledged allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II, and her heirs. So our pledge is to the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is people get so brainwashed from TV. There's been actual legit veterans thinking that they took the American oath. It's like, dude, no, that enemies, foreign and domestic. No, you didn't, you idiot.
Oh, well, that's not in
No,
our.
that's in the
Oh.
States. You turn off the TV. Yeah, go look at your certificate. And people have argued with me about
I
this. I'm
have
like,
First
dude,
Amendment rights. No,
no, you
no,
don't.
those don't
No,
exist here. We don't have that.
no.
Yeah.
Look at your certificate of service. It says right there, you pledge allegiance to the sovereign, to the queen, and now it's the king and their heirs, the royal family. That's your oath.
Yep.
That you know, but if we actually had a real constitution that had some teeth, that's a way better thing. And actually, when I swore in, I remember going, "This doesn't seem right." Like I said, "Is there an option? Like, do I have to swear to the Queen, or can I swear to like the Canadian flag or the government of Canada or something?" They're like, "No, there is no door number two." I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
Well, all right. I pledge allegiance to the Queen and her heirs.
Yeah. We've got a very weird system because we're still a colony. Like, because we still have to like bend the knee to the crown, which I'm like, unless we get rid of that. So I'm a Republican then on that front for a little while, because I don't see that, other than the boomers are the ones that are holding on to that, because they see it as like part of the legacy, I think, from their parents that fought, during the Second World War. And, we're still very much tied to the British royal family and to the monarchy. I get it. But in terms of like moving forward as a country, man, we need to,
well, people think it's just symbolic. Oh, it's just symbolic.
It's not.
No, it's
not.
fucking
it's
not.
Real. It's real.
The Queen's face is on our money.
It's real. It's so
it's not
real.
Symbolic.
No, and like the Governor General, like, I mean, this I like about your podcast. I was going to talk about fitness and health. Now I'm talking about the Canadian Constitution. This is amazing. And the royal family. I really don't see how we can progress as a country if we don't nail down this, like, where are we going? And that requires us to actually have the framework, the political framework to do so. When your last line of like in the sand of who makes the final decision is either the Governor General, who's appointed by the PM, which doesn't make any sense because they're technically the head of state, and then it's the king, who doesn't give two, like, I don't think Charles gives two shits about Canada, I'll be honest. Well, then you can just do whatever you want as like a minister, because the ministers don't swear to the PM, they swear to the crown. Like, they're
and it's the sovereign, so the king. Now, if we want to prorogue Parliament, it's the Governor General that says, "Hey, Mr. King, hey Chucky, can we prorogue Parliament, pretty please?" They don't have to say yes.
I know, but like, it's such a ridiculous system, and I just, everything trickles down from that ridiculous system. And if you look into it a little bit deeper, like, oh, okay, so that's kind of why we don't really have teeth in anything. And then you can, and this, man, we're going on tangents, man. But like, when it comes to like the Veteran Wellbeing Act, I'm starting to get an education on that, and it makes sense why we don't have like doctors for ourselves and we get a raw deal. It's, well, we have the inability to kind of advocate for ourselves, and it's always going to come top down. They're not going to ask us, they're just going to implement things, and then we're going to get the shaft. And just knowing like how our system works gives us a lot more context as to like where we're going to go and like how we can potentially fix it. But yeah, we got some big problems, but I'm focusing on the veteran ones, and I think that's where I'm going to stay for now.
That's why I stay in my lane too.
Yeah.
Like the freedom movement and all that. I'm definitely pro trucker, but I don't talk about it. Because I'm about mental health.
Yeah.
So I don't want to alienate anybody. Anybody that disagrees and thinks that truckers are Nazis, like, okay, well, they're not, but okay, whatever. That's not the hill to die on for me. I got lots of friends that are trying to do both camps. It's like, okay, you do that, but I can't taint the brand. I have a very clear mission: save lives, relieve pain by making help for mental health injuries easily accessible. And that's what I do. So I stay in that lane. And when I try to get people try to pull me out of that lane, I'm like, no, that'll contaminate the brand, and somebody is not going to access the help that they need because of my political beliefs. And that's a crime.
Yeah.
That's somebody that won't get help.
Yeah.
So
precisely.
I don't want to, no, that's not I don't comment on the news and stuff too much, and I don't hide it, but I don't toot that horn either.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so, sometimes it's hard, right? Because like, even my end, like fitness and health has got politicized. Something that you would think would never get politicized. They're talking about like exercising is somehow like a right wing like nationalist movement thing. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Come on, man. Or like if you
so you want to
dare,
listen to the team that tells you to not be fit, that wants you to be
yeah,
sick and not healthy. Vitamins and health food. They're trying to
it's
shut it all down.
that's what dude,
The liberal government.
that's what radicalized me. If you want to call me radicalized, I'm a science teacher. Like I'm a literal science teacher.
Yeah, vitamins are bad.
It's just like, hold on a sec. Vitamin D is a great vitamin. Like everybody should be taking more. How dare
Ultra
you say that?
processed food
You're a
is
right
just
wing.
fine.
Get off the internet. It's like, no, but it's been known for 100 years that vitamin D
Yeah.
is great for respiratory illnesses.
No, sunshine is bad.
This guy, cancel him. Get him off the.
Yeah, sunshine is bad. Vitamins are bad. Ultra processed food is good. Eat more craft dinner.
Yeah, and don't dare get fit and like show off that you're fit, because that's fat shaming or that's going to make people feel bad. It's like, it's not to make people feel bad. It's to inspire.
Farm fresh eggs are bad.
It's to inspire people, right? Like most people will go, "Wow, cool. I'd like to be like that too." That's the reason why marketing exists with people that are beautiful. It's like, I want to be beautiful too. Maybe this shirt will make me that much more beautiful. It won't,
Well,
but
then this episode's going to take off because we're a couple of handsome fuckers.
Oh man, Canada, we build them hot and handsome, man. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, hello.
Get him on the show. I'd like to chat with him. Crush it.
Try it actually, because I had a buddy of his on the show, John Bell, and they're friends. So
we got to link up the Canadian network isn't that big. We need to do a better job of like bringing like just regular, like Canadians are. I haven't really met any Canadians that aren't like easy-ish to talk to, especially if they have any kind of like stature. Like, I mean, I thought like Don Cherry, case in point, he was in Kandahar at Christmas time, and we just hung out. And
he just gave me a no.
Oh, he gave you a no? Oh, no way.
Yeah, last week.
Okay.
So it's not the first no I got from him, but this time I tried through Sylvia Pacoda, who was just on the show, and she's friends with his son Tim and Don Cherry. But he said, "Nope, I don't do podcasts."
All right, maybe he'll change his tune.
Yeah.
I wanted to get Theo Fleury as well, because I was a big fan of Theo, and then he's like prolific on Twitter now, but he's got like a lot of good initiatives.
Have you had a conversation with Theo?
He was supposed to come on the show, but then it was 2022, 2021, and then like his his executive assistant or publicist or whatever was like, not now, we'll do it later, and then just never materialized. So we'll see. But yeah, this has been great, man. I really appreciate the conversation. This is awesome.
All right, brother. Well, I think we're about there then. So the name of your book one more time.
Harden the fuck up.
All right, and when's it going to come out?
On the 29th of November, 2024. So that is Black Friday. So there's going to be paperback, audio version, and e-version for your learning preference. And on top of that,
the name of your podcast?
On top of that, yes, the Hard to Kill podcast with Dave Morrow. So we're we've been kicking for 5 years now, 2019, which is hard to believe. And you can find more information there as well. You can also go to go.hardtokill.org/book teaser and download a part of the book, the 30-day plan, a part of the 30-day plan that you can find in the book, and get yourself on the pre-sale list as well. So I really appreciate that.
Well, you've been doing a great job, a great service to the veteran community, Dave. And tell them about your goal of how many veterans do you want to get fit with your programs?
Yes, sir. So my mission is to help 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds, because like I said earlier, I believe we're the next greatest generation and we need to be healthy in order to do that. So if you can head to hardtokill.org, like you can basically find out everything I'm doing.
Hardtokill.org.
Yep. So my podcast is there. The programs that I'm running are there. the free communities and the paid communities that I'm running are there as well. So there's a multitude of things that you can get behind. I'm very ADHD, so I like getting my fingers in a lot of different pies. So if you want to come tune into the Hard to Kill world, then yeah, you're definitely going to want to head to hardtokill.org.
You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. Thanks for joining us today. And also, as always, please share like the sugar bear, because sharing is caring, and you just might save a life.